Right, today we are here to learn histology of the connective tissue. But before we really go into detail of histology of connective tissue, we'll put the whole connective tissue in proper perspective in relation to the all other tissues in the body. So what is connective tissue, where it is present in the body, what are its components, what are its functions, and of course, what are its dysfunctions, right? So let's start with the very, very basic, and then we'll go to the connective tissue. You know that the basic fundamental block of the life is cell, isn't it? So let's start with cell, that this is a cell. Is that right? Now, actually cells are arranged together to make tissues. Now, what is tissue? First of all, we should define it. What is the difference in cell and tissue? Yes, please.
Tissue is composed of many cells.
Very good. Tissue is composed of many cells which are put together for some specific functions. Is that right? Tissues are made of group of cells which are put together, right? And structurally and functionally, they are having some specific features, right? So it means that tissues are group of cells. What are these? These are group of cells. So many cells group together and make the tissues, and different tissues are having different functions, right? And then what are the basic tissues? What are the basic tissues which make your body? Yes, please. What are 4 basic tissues which make a full human being, so beautiful human being? Yes. What are 4 basic tissues? Anyone?
Muscle.
Okay, muscle. Muscle is one tissue, yes. You have to tell me 4 basic tissues which make all the human being.
Epithelium being one.
Epithelium, very good. Epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue, yes. Then there is, you can say, muscle tissue. Right, and then there is nerve tissue, nervous or nerve tissue, and another tissue which connect all of them, supports all of them structurally and functionally. Again, listen, body is basically having 4 types of tissue. Is that right? What are tissues? Tissues are made of cells, and they are having specific structural and functional characteristics, right? Primarily, human tissues are divided into 4 categories. One is epithelial tissue. Is that right? You know the features of epithelial tissues mean many cells put together in close apposition. If there are many cells which are in close apposition and there is very little intercellular material, for example, this one cell, this is another cell, there is very little material in between the cells. If many cells are put together in close apposition, is that right? And with, this is basal lamina, other side is free. One side is free. Then this type of tissue is called epithelium. Is that right? So all our body having all those tissues in which cells are very closely packed. They are making the sheets. Is that right? Those sheets are sheets of cells in which there is very little intercellular material, very little material in between the cells. And these sheets of cell are free on one side. These are called epithelium. They are called epithelium. Basically, epithelium has 3 things. Yes, it covers the external surface of the body, skin. It covers internal lining of the body, like lining of respiratory system, internal lining of urogenital system, internal lining of gastrointestinal system. Is that right? So all the respiratory system from nose down up to what? Lungs. It is lined by epithelium. Talk about the gastrointestinal system. It is lined throughout by epithelium. Urogenital system, I don't want to point out. Urogenital system, that also is lined by epithelium. These are internal linings. So one tissue I'm talking about, epithelial tissue, is made of many cells which are in close apposition. They are making sheets, and these sheets and layers are free on one side, and these cells, layers or sheets or epithelial tissue lines external surface of the body and lines internal surfaces of the body, as well as they make glands. The three things, they make the basic linings in the body. Linings may be external surface lining, yes, internal surface lining, plus epithelial cells also line the body cavities. There's abdominal cavity, it is all lined by epithelial tissue. And then some epithelial cells, right, they make a specialized structures called glands, right? So this is one tissue, epithelial tissue. Other tissue in the body which is very important is, and very basic tissue is muscle tissue, right? All your skeletal muscles and smooth muscles and cardiac muscles, right? They are made of muscle tissue. Now in the muscle tissue, very special thing about muscle tissue is, the most important unique feature of the muscle tissue is it has contractile proteins. Muscle tissue is made of muscle cells. The very special thing about the muscle cell is they are having the proteins which help the cell to contract, help the cell to shorten. Is that right? Like actin and myosin and tropomyosin, we will discuss in detail later. So cells make tissues, and 4 basic tissues make your body, right? First basic tissue I told you, epithelial tissue, where cells are in close opposition and making the linings and glands outside the body and inside the body. Muscle tissues are consisting of muscle cells. What is very special thing about muscle cells? They are having contractile proteins, so they can contract. Heart can contract and move the blood. GIT has smooth muscle which contract and move the content of the GIT, and of course your limbs have the skeletal muscles which move you. Is that right? Then nerve tissue. What is the very special thing about nerve tissue? Nerve tissue consists of very specialized cells which can receive information, integrate information and transmit information. Nerve tissue consists of very special type of cells called neuron. I make a very simple neuron. Neuron can receive information through electrical and electrochemical impulses. Neurons can receive information, integrate information and transmit information. A high-speed information network in your body. Nerve tissue. Is that right? And all these tissues, epithelial tissue, muscle tissue, nerve tissue, all of them are connected and supported structurally and functionally by connective tissue. Connective tissue. This is what we are going to study in detail. So what is connective tissue? Connective tissue is present all over the body. It is present all over the body. It is present in central nervous system, it is present in your heart, it is present in your skin. You name any tissue, it has connective tissue. You name any tissue, it has connective tissue. What is connective tissue? Connective tissue is a special type of tissue which connects all other tissues and supports the other tissue for structurally supporting the other tissues and functionally supporting the other tissues. Let me tell you what is really meant by this. Let's suppose here you have epithelium of the skin. This is your skin. There are, of course, you know, there are cells, basal cells here and multi-layers. What is the type of epithelium in the skin? What is the type of epithelium? Stratified squamous epithelium. Now, this is skin. It has glands, of course, like sweat glands and sebaceous glands. You know that, right? There are glands sweating. Now, look, skin need to be supported. It should have connective tissue, isn't it? So connective tissue is under it, and let's suppose this is connective tissue of the skin, this blue. Now, what is the function of this connective tissue? It should structurally support the epithelium of the skin, and it should functionally support the epithelium of the skin. How? Structurally, how it is supporting? For example, this underlying connective tissue of the skin, which is called dermis. What is it called? Dermis. And this epithelium is called epidermis. Now, skin consists of both things, right? This is the epithelium of the skin. This is the connective tissue of the skin. What I'm saying, connective tissue has one function, that connect the different element. For example, under it there's a muscle, or under it there's a bone. So skin is connected through the connective tissue with other tissue. Epithelium is connected through the connective tissue with underlying structures, number one. Number two is structurally supporting it. Number three is functionally supporting also. How it is functionally supporting? Let's suppose here there is a blood vessel. Now, any nutrition has to come through the connective tissue up to the skin epithelium. If glucose has to go, that has to pass through the connective tissue, isn't it? If oxygen has to pass through the connective tissue, the waste product have to go back through the connective tissue to the vascular system. Are you understanding? So what it is doing is functionally supporting it. So connective tissue structurally support the tissues, functionally support the tissues. It is present throughout the body and even have one very important function. Connective tissue has many types of cells and it has very important cells which play a role in defense, body defenses. When bacteria come here, connective tissue may have some cells which belong to the immune system. Again, for example, if bacteria or pathogen come in, they're trying to destroy the skin. In this layer of the skin, there will be cells which act as defensive mechanisms. There may be macrophages which eat the bacteria. There may be mast cells which will produce inflammatory response to injury, right? So it means another function of the connective tissue is building the defense mechanisms, right? So how many functions of connective tissue we know? It structurally supports the tissues, it functionally supports the tissues, and of course, it is having many cells and components which play a role in defense against the microbes and other pathogens, right? And then, if skin is injured, let's suppose you injure the skin here, right? There's some injury here. Then, there are connective tissue cells here. Cells from the connective tissue will multiply and fill the gap and make a scar. It means connective tissue also plays a role in repair of the injured tissue. Connective tissue plays a role in repair of the injured tissue. So how many things we learned about connective tissue? Connective tissue is responsible to provide structural strength to the tissues. It is responsible to provide functional support to the tissue, right? And connective tissue is responsible to provide the defense mechanisms, right? It has many cells. And of course, connective tissue has cells which help in the repair of the tissue. Is that clear? Now, we will talk about other details later. But we have to see what connective tissue is. What it consists of, what type of components. Now we have to think. I just said the connective tissue is there, right? But what it is, what is its microstructure? What are its micro components? Connective tissue is made of what? Who will tell me? It's made of what? First of all, tell me cells at least. Every tissue has cells, right? Right? It's a very simple thing. Every tissue has cells, so connective tissue must have cells. So number one, there are cells. What else? Fibers, that's good. What else? Ground substance. I think it's something like a jungle. Yeah. You know, if you go to a jungle, you will have some ground with a lot of trees and a lot of monkeys around. It's a monkey forest. Connective tissue is like monkey forest. We can make the basic components of the connective tissue that these are three basic components here, first of all. And this is the ground, and on the ground there must be what? In the jungle, there must be trees, isn't it? Some trees are really thick with big stems. Non-branching trees. Then there are thin trees, and then there are branching. So this is a jungle of connective tissue. It is having a ground, and of course you should not forget what are there. Yeah, he knows them. Is that right? So what are these monkeys? What are these monkeys? Right? What are these monkeys? I will keep on drawing the monkeys until you don't tell me. What are these monkeys? Yeah, cells. That's good. So we have to study this monkey business, monkey jungle. What is connective tissue? It's a jungle which is made of some ground substance with some fibers and with some cells. Is that right? We'll study every component one by one. We'll study that cells in detail, from where these monkeys come first of all. Then we have to talk about from where these fibers come and from where this ground substance come. You must be knowing that this ground substance has three basic components. Number one, glycosaminoglycans. This is a special component I will teach you in detail later, right? These are special type of macromolecules. These are called glycosaminoglycans. Then there are proteoglycans. I will go into detail of all of them, don't worry. The glycosaminoglycans, there are proteoglycans, and there are glycoproteins. So these are the ground substance. You take any tissue in the body, right? It will have ground substance which will be made of glycosaminoglycans, proteoglycans, and glycoproteins. Number one. Number two, there are, of course, this is jungle, there must be trees. What are these? These are connective tissue fibers. What are these? Connective tissue fibers. These are thick fiber, these are very thick fibers, and these thick fibers and unbranched, right? What are these fibers called? Collagen. Is that right? They are thick and unbranched. And there are thin fibers. Thin fibers. Is that right? And these thin fibers are really thin. They are about 0.3 to 0.5 micron. And collagen fibers, these thick collagen fibers are 10 to 300 micron. Okay. Don't remember even these sizes. No one is going to ask. Just remember they are thick and there are thin fibers. Both are unbranched. Thick unbranched are collagen. Thin unbranched are, yes please? Yes? Reticular fibers, that's great. These are reticular fibers, excellent. And these branching fibers, what are these? These branching fibers which are present in connective tissue, elastic fibers. That's right, elastin or elastic fibers. Elastic fibers. So now, what we have learned up to now, that connective tissue has three basic components, right? There is ground substance and there are fibers. Is that right? And then there are monkeys. What are these monkeys? Cells of the connective tissue. So write it down that connective tissue is equal to cells of the connective tissue plus these two things. All other things other than the monkey. All other things other than the monkeys are called, they are outside the cells. These fibers are outside the cells and these ground substance material is outside the cells because cells are monkeys. So all material which is outside the cell is also called extracellular, yes, matrix. And of course extracellular matrix has two components. You already know there are ground, yes, ground substance and fibers. So what is connective tissue? Connective tissue is a tissue which structurally and functionally supports other tissues. Is that right? It consists of connective tissue cells and extracellular matrix. The very special feature of connective tissue is that there are less cells and in between the cells there are a lot of extracellular material. The extracellular material or material in between the cell or material outside the cells is also called extracellular matrix. An extracellular matrix basically consists of fibers, right? And in between the fibers, this filling material is ground substance. And then it's so easy to understand that fibers are how many types? There are collagen fiber, then there are, yes, reticular fibers, and there are elastic fibers. Remember one thing, the reticular fibers are very special type of collagen fiber. Should be there, it means one of you is not sleeping. That's very good. So one of you pointed out fibers should be on the fiber side. And what about others? Collagen, yes. Reticular, collagen are thick, unbranched. Reticular are thin, unbranched, reticular fibers, and elastic fibers, which are thin with branching. Is that right? These are the fibers. And in between the fiber, there is proteinaceous material and proteins and carbohydrate made material that is called ground substance. What are these three components? Yes. Glycosaminoglycans, yes. Proteoglycans and glycoproteins, right? These things we'll study later, right? Fibers and ground substance. Today we'll concentrate mainly on the cells of the connective tissue.